You're now listening to It's Easy Breezy. I'm your host, Danny, and today we have a special guest joining us here to talk about his brand new album titled Make It Count. Everybody give a nice warm round of applause for Cal Davis. So, could you tell us what went into the album and inspirations behind the songs that you created?
You know, I tell you, there's a whole backstory to what I did. I did this for a long time. Was on several major labels and took a break. And I say to people, if you can't write songs in the middle of life, then you can't write songs because the mess hits the fan. And the inspiration really, but there's real inspiration pretty much behind every song. And at the basis of it is a tremendous amount of change in life in the last 10 years, from things that happened to friends, from things that to my parents, to being sick, to moving. So it's about change. It's about great things happening, and it's about adapting to change. And it's I've got a song called Not Broken, and it's really to my youngest daughter. She had about had as much change as she could take, and then we moved, and that house was where everything, all of her memories, she felt like resided, and so we make a conscious decision. Some things we can take with us, some things we have to leave, but the whole record is it's about adapting to change, and that was kind of a long answer. Sorry.
How many songs are on the album?
There's 8 songs, and there's probably going to be 2 or 3 songs that are going to be like bonus tracks in the spring.
Do you have a favorite song on the album?
There's a couple of songs. They kind of changed, but I kept the 8 that I absolutely really really love. And there's a couple more that I really wanted to put out, that are going to be Make It Count bonus tracks. But I really love the song Not Broken, just because that phrase means a lot, kind of to our family. When we're trying to figure out, okay, we've got to move forward, and just because you have to work through things, just because your life is in a constant state of kind of healing sometimes, doesn't mean you're all cracked and fractured and broken for good, or it doesn't mean that that's not a part of life,
Right.
And sometimes I think writing kind of became very cathartic, for me, and that song means a lot. They kind of run the gamut. There's a song called Old Habits, and that song, it starts off, is it easier, to be forgotten, and it says you change to patina, and everybody thinks you're made of stone, and it's coming from the perspective of the Statue of Liberty. And she's saying, I'm kind of tired of doing this. I feel like I'm doing this by myself. This flame, which represents trying to do what's right, this flame is kind of heavy, and I may quit, and I may move out west, and I may paint, and I may do some things, and that's just a kind of a social analogy for, are we kind of carrying enough weight, on our own? Are we doing enough individually? And I really like that song, So I kept the ones that I really sing and I really mean.
Do you feel like your surroundings influence your musical style?
I think so. I think the age and the antiquity of the area and the historical, I forget. I fly to my brother's house sometimes in Texas, and I forget, man, there's not a lot of history here. I don't mean that. It's not the same, rather.
Right.
And then, you get out in Virginia, and it's been there. It's been there a long time, and most of the East Coast, and yeah, I think I grew up there. I went away from college and came back, but you can't help but let the things you see influence you, and a lot of it is the antiquity of the streets and the structures and the old churches, and it does influence you. It influences you a lot, I think.
What would you classify your music style as?
I think I'm some kind of singer songwriter, and I'll tell you how I was thinking. We started making this record, and I started with a guy named Stuart Myers, and he was originally in a band called Agents of Good Roots, and they were a great band on RCA, kind of a jazz jam band. And Stuart went on to produce some Jason Mraz and some Sarah White and Lifehouse. And we were kind of making an Americana record. We were making more of a Jackson Browne record, who Jackson Browne was kind of integral in my musical upbringing. And then I kind of switched over midway through to a guy that's a little more Euro singer-songwriter. And I kind of wanted to move a little bit more towards maybe guys like David Gray, and some kind of Coldplay, kind of just more musically, some different ideas. And so, I think it's kind of an amalgam of that. I think there's a couple of Americana songs, but I think there's a couple of songs that are a little more, maybe a little more Euro-ish, in the way the drums are mixed and in the way the background vocals are mixed. I'm somewhere in there. We're all our DNA is just so mixed up, in our musical and otherwise. It's hard to say what we are. I'm kind of a mutt.
Who shot the video for Make It Count?
Mikan Media and his friend, two young guys that I know, Show and Zavi from Mikan Media, and I think they're really talented, and I'm kind of really expecting big things from these guys from Mikan Media. Yeah, it's just two guys, and they also did. I don't know if you saw the video for the song "Stay."
Yes.
And they did that one also. And funny, we were looking for somebody that's in this house, that's walking around, that's kind of maybe thinking back on his life, or there's people have, thought lots of things about that guy, and we couldn't find the actor, and so that's my father-in-law. I drafted him at the last minute.
Are there any scenes that stick out to you the most?
Man, absolutely. That video was a labor of love, and the video is so real. And I'll tell you, so the first verse is pretty autobiographical, and the second verse is pretty autobiographical, and it was really about this kid. I didn't really know him all that well, and he just was just socially didn't fit in really well. In school, we were in school, and we were kind of older. We were in junior high or high school. But I still read comic books. My older brother read comic books, and we kind of connected like that. But this kid, but later on, Donald took his life, and people were tremendously unkind. And I think back about that now, and I just really ponder, that time in life and people that go through that. Well, the girl in the video is a really good friend of ours, and her brother took his life too about 17 years ago, and she has come to some resolution, and she's in that church. She's walking in that church, and that's a picture of him, and then it cuts from her to a young mother in the park with a child, and it's kind of such a dichotomy, but it's hopeful, and then her, the the woman in the church, Michelle Garcia Studer, she her look is so hopeful as she looks up, and then it kind of cuts to the woman. I guess she's playing, she's kind of throwing her son up, and in the end of that, I don't know. I just thought that the timing of that and the editing of that was really wonderful. It made me feel hopeful, you know.
So you toured a lot in the past with a lot of big artists. Could you speak on it?
Man, I played, and I toured with lots of people, and I actually, you know, I got my first record deal, and it's a guy that really lived in Raleigh and Charlotte. Is a producer named Don Dixon, who did all the early REM records, Smithereens, and he helped me get a record deal, and then I got a record deal in New York with a guy named Phil Ramone. He's a producer, huge producer, and one of the biggest in the world ever. He did all the Billy Joel, he did McCartney, and he did Paul Simon and Elvis Costello, and just everybody.
I was reading.
Yeah, and so I got to do a lot of things, and I had a couple singles out that did well, and then I had, you know, young kids, and then I, you know, you get to a point and you're not getting over the hump, and I was like, man, I'm really tired. I need a break, and so you know, you take it, but I have gotten to play with lots of people, you know, lots of different artists who are really great, and play on lots of neat shows and tours, and so this is kind of like Act Two, and I wanted to make this record because, you know, I felt like I had something to say, and I feel like, you know, these songs are important. And I was telling somebody else, I said, you know, my barometer for success now is different than what it was. One of the most important things is I want to do as many positive things as I can with this opportunity, you know, and I've been trying to do work with different 501 charities and do some shows for different things, and so you know, so this is a little different of a journey, and you know, we're all kind of self-absorbed, you know, sometimes in music and in acting when we're young, and you get a little bit older and you think, okay, I have an opportunity to do something with this, and my platform isn't as big as some people, but it's a little bit of a platform, and I can do something, and so.
Have you been able to perform any songs off the album?
Yeah. We during the fall, we're trying to schedule some tour dates, you know, up right now. But during the fall, I did a lot of, I had a lot of tour dates, really, that were really fun. Played in Philly and played the Ram's Head, and we played a couple of dates at Wolf Trap in Northern Virginia, and we played a few times different theaters in Virginia and Charlottesville and Richmond. And so, you know, we're trying to get the record out now, and then we're booking some things up for, like, you know, February and March, and I haven't performed every song yet. I've performed most songs, but I need to work up a really good acoustic arrangement to a couple of other songs too. Some of these have been with the band, and some of them have been acoustic. And
so, what type of guitar do you use?
You know, I still play. My dad and his father kind of went in together. He was like 14 and bought a used J45 Gibson in like 1945.
And Lance, how can listeners find the album Make It Count?
It should be on every online at January 31st. It should be on every online, you know, purchasing place. You know,
and they search for Cal Davis.
Mm-hmm. It should be up. It's Make It Count. Should be up and on everything, and you can always get in touch with me on Instagram and Facebook. Everything is Kyle W. Davis Music, and there's just a million Kyle Davises, and everything comes up.
Yeah.
But Kyle W. Davis Music on Instagram and Kyle W. Davis Music at Facebook, and I love hearing from people, and as we've kind of gotten out there and gotten these first couple of videos out, it's amazing the people that have reached out. They're like, "Hey, I've got your records from 20 years ago," and people in San Diego and Seattle and Boulder, and it's really interesting. It's neat. And I'm going to put a song by song on the website, KyleWDavisMusicAlso.com, and